This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Bryan Driscoll, and I'm here with Bryan Powers. What's going on, Bryan?
Oh, man, having a great day. Day after Memorial Day, getting back from the lake, jumping back into the bump and grind. So
nice. Yeah, it's nice. We had a great weekend up here in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you.
Oh, yeah? Good weather?
Yeah, great weather.
Yeah, we did too. Yeah, after a whole lot of rain recently, it's been really nice to enjoy the sun with a mild wind, mild breeze. So.
Yeah, I'll take it. So, Bryan, give us a little background, because I know you do a lot of different things. You're involved with like you have your own rentals. You get involved with like syndication, like big projects. Give everyone a little background on what you do.
Yeah, sure. I actually got out of 22 years in restaurants back in 2013 and went full-time into real estate November of 2014. And, since then, I quickly merged with another large group in the Springfield, Missouri area. And we built a property management company, a full turnkey acquisitions company, just all of the moving parts. We had a brokerage, a KW brokerage in-house and stuff like that. So we quickly went from doing, 10 deals a year to doing a couple hundred deals a year with a staff of over 20. And that's just kind of came from my background. And, I was a next gen candidate ready to become a McDonald's owner operator at one point in time, and threw the towel in, said, I don't want to do anymore. I don't want anything to do with Golden Arches. So I'm going to go do something else. And ended up in real estate, and, I haven't regretted it, at all. So it's been a great transition. Since then, I've separated from those partners. My current partner and I operate a little smaller operation in single family, but a larger operation, and trying to get into like multifamily. We've got a resort right now that we're syndicating for in about 40 minutes south of Lake of the Ozarks. And we operate in Memphis and Little Rock now. I don't operate in my backyard. So.
Okay. So what's your primary business? You have a couple then, right? You're dealing with the single family rentals and then the big syndication type of things that are getting into big projects.
We do. If I broke it down, I'd say really I operate 4 companies right now. Two have to do with single family, and that's New Path Home Buyers, which is an acquisitions company, just basically a wholesale acquisitions company. And we feed properties to my other company that's called Gen Investments. Gen Investments works with, we call them partnership LLCs. And a partnership LLC, instead of going out and trying to raise money for each deal, private money, and then connecting that with a lender, we actually start an LLC with high net worth people. And they take ownership. They get 25% ownership of the company that we create, and we're just using their money. So their money stays fairly liquid, right? They can put it in and pull it out. Sometimes they have to wait for a transaction to complete. But at the end of the day, they get ownership in it. So it really spits out really nice returns for them. And it keeps our accounts full of cash, right? Which is, cash is king when you're in any business, and especially in real estate. It allows us to take down deals that other people otherwise couldn't. As we raise more and more private money, that starts turning into multifamily and other type of syndication deals. Then we just inked a deal with a company called Coastal Country, which is building a 2,000 guest glamping resort near Lake of the Ozarks. So that's a new one. And then one I've been in for a few years is called Angler Aid. It's a fishing first aid and safety kit. It has nothing to do with real estate. And hopefully we'll get bought out of that tomorrow. So
yeah, nice.
That's about the extent of what I got going on now. But I've done everything from, restaurants, owned a few different restaurants, a couple franchises, owned a live music venue back in the day, used to own a recording studio, recorded rap and rock and roll. So
nice. So what made you get into real estate then?
It's funny, but I was actually trying to impress the C-level people in McDonald's. As you're going through this next generation program to try and become an operator, just because your parents owned McDonald's at one point in time doesn't mean that you're going to get approved. As a matter of fact, only like less than 50% of the next gen candidates actually get approved. So you really got to impress the system with what you're doing with your money. Most people aren't a million liquid if, they've been in restaurants their whole life. And in lieu of that, you've got to just show that you're doing smart stuff with your finances. I had dinner with a dentist friend of mine, and he said, man, I'm reading this book. Maybe this is what you need to do. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's so cliche, but just is what it is. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, never even heard of the book. Immediately, like I read in 3 days. The next 3 days, I read Cash Flow Quadrant and just said, oh, this is what I want to do. I loved it. So I started doing it on the side. And I did about 10 deals the first year, just BRRRR deals. And I think it was before they coined the phrase BRRRR, either that or I hadn't heard it. But, you know, buy, rent, rehab, or buy, rehab, rent, repeat. So doing that over and over and over again, and ended up merging with that other bigger company that was doing that on a more scalable level, where we were selling the stuff turnkey to, you know, mostly clients out of California.
Nice. So, it's funny how like those small things can change your direction, like just one book and it gives you that idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you roll with it. So okay, so you got into that. So let's talk about some failures. Like, I know in this space, to get where you got and where you are right now, I know you had to be punched in the face a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, like right from the get-go, right? I mean, they don't ever turn out the way they did. My very first deal, I had I think it went like $14,000 over budget. And, you know, when you're doing your very first deal, 14 grand, it seems like that's just going to suck you dry. So the cool thing about real estate is my first strategy was just to fix and flip a house. And what I ended up doing is, you know, refinancing it, finding somebody that would do a lease with an option to purchase, putting a big down payment down. And it saved me out of a deal that should have probably gone upside down or at best break even. Fast forward a couple years and I get into my first apartment syndication, where I found a lady who owned some land, and there was a 40-unit apartment complex right next door to it. And our goal was to develop another 142 units on the empty land. And that whole thing turned into a 2.5-year lawsuit, got embezzled from. We had $200,000 worth of attorney's fees just to fight it and retain, you know, integrity in the deal as much as you can when you go through something like that. So I definitely had some rough patches in there too. You know, even just in general partnerships, you know, when you're partnering with people, you know, I've got really good partners here, and I've got some good partners that I've been in business with that I'm not anymore, and we all get along, but you don't always see eye to eye. You know, sometimes their vision is different than yours, especially when you get 3 visionaries in the room. But I would say, like, you know, I mean, the good thing about real estate is that there's a lot of different ways to handle a bad deal. And, you know, you can kind of change the deal structure in order to make it make sense most of the time. But I will say, just in the last 6 months, I mean, this is weird for an investor that's been doing this for, you know, 8-9 years now. But, you know, we had a deal that we bought that when we got in and started demoing it, we realized the house wasn't built on a foundation. It was eaten up with termites. We took a $62,000 loss on it. Had another deal recently where we had insurance on a house, but the pipe burst and ruined our $530,000 house rehab. And then the insurance wouldn't cover it because they said that it was our responsibility to have the utilities on, which they were on. Somehow the gas got turned off, and we don't know if a realtor did that or somebody hit the thermostat off or what happened. But the way it was inked in the insurance contract, we had to eat basically $80,000 on that one. So yeah, that's just in the last 6 or 8 months.
Yeah. So what do you do, man? Because that's some big hits. Like, what do you do there that keeps you staying focused and keeps the ship going straight?
Yeah, I mean, really, all it is like power and volume. And fortunately, some of those big mistakes didn't happen until, you know, we were already rolling and doing 100 deals a year, whatever the deal flow is. So you can afford a couple bad scrapes in your business. You know, if you've got some others to support that.
Yeah. I guess you're right. You got lucky that's not your first deal.
Yeah. And you know, the tough thing too is because we have investors, and we have to go back to the investor and be like, hey, we had all these wins. Unfortunately, we had this bad one here. And, you know, we're also at a point in our business where we can afford to at least buy them out of those scrapes. They don't get to make money on that deal, but they're not going to lose. So we actually take the hit. But, you know, I mean, had stuff happened early on in the process that could be pretty catastrophic. And I think that's testimony to a lot of these guys that are like me that, they want to go real fast and, go big real fast. And there's just these learning curves that happen. I mean, even 8-9 years into it, where we're going, how do we not see that? What do we do different in our systems and processes to avoid that ever happening again?
Yeah, and I guess that's smart. That's good too, because you can always look back and look at your systems and processes and make sure, okay, this happened. Let's make sure it doesn't happen a second time.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you're talking about like you have good partners and bad partners. Like, what do you look for whenever you're looking at a partner to try to make sure that you guys jive okay and everything's decent? Like, is there anything you specifically look at?
Well, it's interesting. Like on this syndication I'm doing with the resort, I have completely different my main partner, Zach, who we've been partners since 2014, and we do everything together. But we, as a whole, will partner with different people. And so on this deal, we're partnered with two guys that we've never been partners with before, and then the key operator who's a new. So how do we vet that? Knowing what we know. And I would say the first part of it is just, face-to-face meetings, multiple meetings. We courted for, the two guys that we're partnering with on the syndication, one of them for almost 3 years, another one for the last year and a half. And then the partner that's the operating partner for the resort that's actually managing the whole development of it. We vetted and jumped on 3.5-hour long Zoom calls, over and over again for a period of about 4 weeks. We do a lot of face-to-face meetings. We ensure that our core values line up with theirs. A lot of questions are asked. We're very transparent. We say, we're going to poke holes at this. Don't let it offend you. But if we can make it through that process where you're not at war with each other before you ever started, and everyone has a mutual understanding that we're all here together to try and get the same goal in the end, usually fruit can get bared from that relationship. Otherwise, just like run as fast as you can, right? If you're already at war before you get started, the answer is obvious. So.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because I think a lot of people jump into bed with people too quick. Even with hiring or partnering, it's like, oh yeah, let's do something. They get in bed, and then they find out later, hey, wait a minute, we don't work well together. We just don't. Our personalities don't match.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you want to make sure that, you're partnering with people that have very different skill sets. I mean, my business partner and I, we've been friends. We've known each other since junior high. We've been, very, very close friends ever since, college. And he's completely different than me. I'm very visionary. I'm really good at projections and looking at a deal and getting creative with the deal structure and getting stuff started. And he's a great finisher. He takes everything from, the incubator stage and that start phase and starts turning it into, QuickBooks accounts and managing it through our teams and setting up budgets and, managing the team that's handling the day-to-day work on it. Where, once a business really gets started, I'm not in it a whole lot at that point. And so, this deal with the syndication, we're 4 different people. Everyone's got completely different skill sets. I'm very good at the front end and the projections. Like I said, I've got another guy that's extremely good at marketing. Another guy is money and management. So he owns a property management company and, has the other side of the money for what we need to do. And then my partner, Zach, of course, who is, once everything gets started, Zach's going to get really busy. Right now, he's not very busy. So I think that's really important. And then, the third thing, too, would be the operating agreement. Really spending some time with an attorney and spending the money to get a really solid operating agreement done. And make sure you're specifically defining all the terms and just thinking through every possible scenario that can happen. So that all of that is stated up front and everyone has agreed to it up front. Because the operating agreement's what saved us in the deals that have gone bad in the past. Now, it can be expensive. You still have to fight it. You still have to go through, court and do that whole thing. But if your operating agreement is sound and you followed it, you're going to be protected in the end.
That's a huge tip too, because I talk to some guys more newer in business. They partner up and they go to LegalZoom, get LLCs, and just use like the stock operating agreements. Like, it is worth its weight in gold to have that attorney. You're planning for the divorce ahead of time, so you're not fighting at the end, so that's really important.
Yeah, especially, big syndication deals. Like if you're not working with an attorney, anytime there's money involved and different partners and whose responsibility is what, all that has to be defined. We have used, I'll usually set up the LLCs myself. We won't pay an attorney to do that, but the operating agreement is the key. That's the one document that you really have to focus on. And if it's a simple pass-through company, then, it's one thing. But when you truly have a structure and a partnership there and money coming in and roles and responsibilities, you've really got to find that, the operating agreement.
Right. Yeah. So even with people partnering, like, so you deal with people also raising funds, like say people want to get involved in real estate and have no skills there, they can pretty much partner with you or lend money. Like, how does that work? Like say you're talking to me and I'm like, hey, Bryan, I have some money here, but I don't know anything about real estate. What would you tell me?
Well, I think real estate is one of those things you either get into it full time and that's what you decide to do, or you find a really good model that will get you passive returns with somebody else doing it. Having been on both sides of the equation, knowing what I know now, I think, like syndications are usually very solid. Apartment syndications with people that have done, if they've got, hundreds of units, sometimes thousands of units that they have managed and worked on over time. Like even on apartment syndication, we still partner with guys that have done, 2,000, 6,000, 10,000 deals to, put them on the agreement, help manage that. Right. So, with this resort syndication, we're going on paper with somebody that's done it for 22 years and is, built and flipped, half a dozen resorts. Which a resort is a much bigger deal than an apartment syndication, at least for the ones that we look at, right? I mean, some apartment complexes are 1,000 units, but most of the stuff we look at are 100, 200, 300 units. 2,000 guest resort on 302 acres is just a much bigger deal than we normally do. So
Right.
we even us, we want to partner with somebody that's been down the road and knows all the systems and processes to get through that deal. So
That's important too, because the big deal is you want to have a strong team that has experience with that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the team is everything. We use an acronym that we call PACE. We say all deals, when we're talking to another investor, you're going to leverage your ROI, your annualized ROI or IRR, however you want to look at it, is going to be based on PACE, equity, leverage, and the team. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to make a return. So, if we say, hey, we think we can build this, resort and we can have it fully stabilized in 3 years. Well, if it takes you 6 years to do it, your returns get cut in half. That makes sense, right? If you're not buying something that has equity in it, then you're kind of, you don't have much security right from the get-go. Leverage, how are you leveraging banks, other private money investments to get the deal done? And then what team have you put together? What experience do they have to, really ensure that the plan that you put in place gets executed the way you planned on? But the team is a huge part of it.
So say someone wants to get involved with you via money lend, like lend you money. Like, how does that look and what's all involved? Like, run me through that.
Yeah, everything gets set up with attorneys, right? So we have a very clearly stated, this is how it works. And it's usually, if you can take a pie chart, you can say, we're taking this much for our efforts. We're going to put some money in, so we're going to end up on this side as well. We're the deal finder, so the team that's executing and putting all the work in, they're going to get a portion of the pie, and then the people that are raising capital get, the rest of the pie. So we're very clear about exactly how that works up front. And we always base ROIs not on the total pie, but just on what the investor is what we expect the investor to get in our projections. The other thing too is, you always want to run everything pretty conservative, because we'd always rather under promise and over deliver. So at the end, if the initial expectation that we've set forward is acceptable to the investor, then hopefully at the end of, this deal that we're doing now is, about a 5-year deal. Hopefully at the end of the 5-year, that investor gets what they expected. And I will say there's, like in our current deal that we're doing right now, it's a development deal. So, you've got 3 phases that are going to take the next 3 years. Each phase is a year of construction. And then you need a year of stabilization, and then you can take it to the bank, and hopefully it's less than 5 years that it gets refinanced. But during that time, the investors don't make any money, right? They're making all of their money when that property sells or refinances, where other syndication deals for the apartments might have a little bit less of a return, but they'll typically give what they call preferred return. So, if an investor says, I want to give you my money, but I want to see a little bit of a return on this every quarter, every month, or every year at least, that's called preferred return. We say, well, we'll promise you 6%, and then we'll give you a portion of the back end. Unlike the deal that we're doing right now, where we're like, you are sharing in the back end with us. So if we ultimately fail, we're going to invest 5 years into this and walk away with nothing. And we would never do that with our time, and we would never do that with somebody's money either, right? So if we don't win, you don't win is the way that all of our deals are set up, whether it's, LP or all GP. So, which is limited partners and then full general partners.
Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting too, because when people are looking at getting involved with syndications, look at what type you're getting involved with. If you're getting money the whole way through, or if you're getting a bigger payday at the end, things like that.
Yeah, it really is. And for each, it really depends on the investor and where they're at. And the other thing is, can you accept 1031 exchanges? On this deal, we can't. So if somebody sells real estate, they want to put that money in. We're not capable of being able to place a 1031 exchange in this deal, but other deals, they can. Sometimes you can work with trusts, and sometimes, you can't. So, I mean, it really just depends on the deal structure that the investor has created for the private money partners.
Gotcha. Yeah. So now if somebody would want to get involved, how do they get a hold of you? Like, what's the process like?
Right now it's email. I'd be Bryan@genetinvestments.com. That's GENENT investments.com. Bryan with a Y, just like Bryan Driscoll there. So, and really, I mean, Bryan, you and I have been talking about it, but we haven't had to brand ourselves. And we're kind of at a stage right now where we really do need to get out there. And it's kind of been nice to not have to, but we're at a point where, we really do need to push. Everything we've done so far for the last 8 or 9 years has been referral. So, and that's a great way to build a business. It makes everything very easy, but obviously we're going to change that soon. So we're going to fire up hopefully a podcast soon, website. And I'm trying to stay off of social media for the most part, but you may talk me out of that.
Yeah, so social's pretty popular. I mean, it's a good way to get your message out there.
Yeah, I mean, for the guy, I don't even follow a Facebook news feed, or I don't have an Instagram or a Snapchat, or I don't do anything on LinkedIn. I just stay off of social media. So I'm like the old guy, just don't do it. Not going to do it. Stubborn. So I'll probably have to change that. But
yeah, what's funny? I don't have Facebook on my phone. I don't really post personally or anything. Just use it straight for business. Really? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so you can go on my personal Facebook feed. You might see a post from a year ago. Which is crazy. Just because I know, I mean, Facebook's kind of creepy. Their algorithms. They know a lot about you when you engage there.
They do, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of data being captured on all social media. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So if someone wants to get involved, like what are the minimum investments? Like, is there a certain number that?
Yeah, for our partnership LLCs in the single family business, those yield very good returns. But we typically look for people that are willing to park $500,000 with us for at least a couple year period. Now, most people, once they park it and they get the returns, side of a Wall Street friend of ours that finds these really high yield things he can invest into, they never pull the money out, right? So they just keep it in there. But, it stays fairly liquid. Now, on the syndication side, our minimums are between 50,000 and 100,000. So we're actually going down to 50,000 on this $7 million raise for coastal country. But a lot of that just has to do with, we have a lot of, family members. This is only an hour from my back door, and we have a lot of people. There's been a great buzz about it. And so just a lot of family members and friends that want to invest.
What would you say the pros and cons for each, say, investing with the partnership LLCs on your rental units versus the syndications? Like, what are the differences?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, the partnership LLCs are kind of unique because we're going to set up an LLC with that person or with their trust, whatever it is. And that is a very intimate relationship. We're constantly reporting. You can watch the accounts and the money come in and go out. We can say, okay, well, here's this house that we bought. Here's how much it's going to rehab for. Here's our projections. And, at the end of the day, here's how it finished out. And, we talk about our deals. The deal with the syndication, somebody's going to park their money and it's going to sit there for 5 years. And of course, for reporting purposes, every month we'll send a report. We'll say, here's how much money's been deployed. Once income starts coming in, here's how much income is. And, we're always trying to gauge how far we off, how far off we are from our projections. Are we off by 1%? Are we off by 6%? But either way, usually it's, hopefully it's 6% positive or 10% above where we thought. Sometimes we run them conservative and that's what we end up hitting. And it's like, well, good thing we ran it conservative. But what we always want is that our investors get, at least what they were promised, is always our goal, right? So.
Yeah, I hear you. So that's good. So give us your email one more time if anyone wants to reach out and get involved.
Yeah, Bryan, Bryan at Gen Ent Investments. It's GenEntinvestments.com.
All right, good stuff. Did we miss anything from a top level, or did we pretty much cover everything at a high level here?
We've covered everything on a high level, I think.
All right. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Yeah, it's interesting stuff you're doing too. And if anyone wants to get involved with Bryan, he's a stand-up guy. These guys know what they're doing. So they have good teams, good processes, things like that. And it's pretty cool too, because you got an option. A lot of people want to get involved with real estate, and if they have money they want to park somewhere, you don't just have to pick one. They have the single family residential stuff and also the big stuff too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a nice mix.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, well, thanks for coming on, Bryan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Bryan. Great chatting.
All right, good stuff. Hey, and for everyone listening, thanks for listening, and go out there and close it and crush some deals.